We live and direct?
We're live, Jay.
All right. We are live. You guys, welcome. What's up, my people? Welcome to the first installment of Root Roundtable. This is kind of a new show idea we had to go behind the scenes. You know, we just launched our Root Collective. It's open to the public, whether it's clients or not. And we get in there and we talk about things that are important to people in retirement and retirement planning. And so we had this idea of like, there's all these topics that come up. And just to give you a little background, my role here is a client success manager. So I take the first call with people that are looking to work with Root. And so I get to talk to awesome people every day, tell them about Root, tell them about our process. And then what I'm trying to do is see if we're a good fit. Are we a good fit for them? Are they a good fit for us? And if we find that to be the case, set them up with one of our advisors. And through my process, I get to hear people's worries, people's hopes, dreams, aspirations about retiring. And so one of the big things that people are calling us about and wanting to potentially work with an advisor is, hey, I want to know when I can retire, right? When is the right time to retire? So we thought we'd kick it off. That was the number one requested thing on the collective, which is that question. So we thought we'd kick off the first Root Roundtable with that exact question. And what we wanted to do is bring on a couple members of our collective, one of them being our guy, Tommy, right, from Philadelphia, who's retired for about 11 months now, right? And he had a great story on how he decided. Then we're bringing in Amy, who coincidentally happens to be one of our Root clients, right? And with the help of our third rock star guest, Chelsea Gonzalez, who runs our high management division. And Chelsea and Amy work closely to create a game plan. So we have Chelsea, and we were going to have her talk about some pro tips to help you guys out. So I am super excited. And then last but not least, we got Luke Dog, the financial weapon, right, who's essential to these live calls to help us guide us through. And so, guys, if you're out there, the chat room is open. We just want to have this dialogue. Please, we encourage you guys to fire away questions at us because we have two people that have gone through it, who are going through it. We have an advisor here that can help. And so any questions, let us know. Put in the chat. So let's get started, Luke Dog. Let's get started. I want to start with Tommy. Okay. Yes. I saw your comment. I don't know how to share yet. Hold on. I wanted to share.
It's in the middle there, Jay.
Okay. All right, buddy. I'll get to it. Okay. But Tommy had a great comment about how he decided, and I wanted him to come on and share with that. So with the question is, how did you know it was time to retire? Tommy, walk us through it.
Well, it took us a while to figure out that it wasn't instantaneous. I kind of knew I was in a good financial position, and I thought I could retire and so one of the things that I really started to do was to see if I could retire, see if I could, i.e., not have a job, not be. I'm an engineer. I like to solve problems. I'm always busy. I always got a to-do list from, with 25 things on it. And I wanted to make sure that I didn't just lose my identity, my sense of purpose. Besides the money part, it was more psychological. Would I be able to do it? And so one of the things I kind of said is I'm going to set draw a line in the sand. And it was about 3.5 years out when I started. And I met with a financial planner. He gave me the go ahead. He said, yeah, you have enough money. Everything's good. Go ahead. And I expected 3 or 4 years, or initially planning. And he came back with, why don't you retire now?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And I was like, well, I didn't think I could. So that was the first part. And I don't think I was mentally ready at that point either. And so when I say I started to practice retirement, we took a trip. It'll be 2 years of summer to Greece, and I turned off all notifications, everything, even work. I didn't take my laptop. I turned off all news. I turned off. The only thing I had was text messages in case the family called. But other than that, all notifications were off. And I said, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to have to, be able to do this. And practice it.
Test it out.
Yeah. If I can't do it, if I'm worried about work. And I was always, told that I'm I was necessary at work and I needed to do things. And I was always worried there may be a layoff or something. And I thought they really needed me. So I started trying new things. I started exercising, trying to work on my health, work on my diet. I started playing golf. A friend of mine who retired, who's a couple of years earlier, he said, "Hey, do you want to play golf?" And I said, "Sure, let's play golf." And he says, "Well, how about 2 weeks?" And I played golf 2 weeks later. He said, "How about 2 more weeks?" I said, "Sure." I know I had the vacation days, but I wasn't using them all. So when I say practice retirement, use your vacation days. Really take them off. Don't take the laptop. Don't take the cell phone. And I got to a point where I was focusing on me. I was trying to leave the office at 5.
Okay.
And just little things like that where stopped eating at my desk, took my lunch hour.
Nice. Create those boundaries.
And then I spent, I want to say, I drew a hard line in the sand and I said, all right, in a year and a half, I'm out. And I literally, that was December of, I don't know, whatever it was. It was actually almost 2 years ago now. But basically, I was going to retire June of last year, and I ended up retiring in March because I knew that I was physically ready. I had nothing left to prove. I didn't want to go through anymore. I didn't want to, I realized that they'd be okay with me without me, and I'd be okay without them.
And Tommy, didn't you say on your comment that you thought you would potentially have to work part-time, right?
Yes, I did. I didn't think that I needed the money. I thought I needed it to, as a programmer, I always like to solve problems and, try programming. And I will tell you that once I hung up my, my mouse, I kind of just said, I'm done. And I very rarely do I even look at Python now. Every once in a while I'll do a personal project, but I thought I would be keeping up with stuff, whatever the trends were in the industry. I said, nope.
No, sir.
I'm more interested in golf and I just picked up pickleball a couple weeks ago. So
Tommy Gunn, you got 2 new addictions now, and that'll keep you busy. Growing up a competitive golfer, people say, Jay, what's your number one advice about getting into golf? I say, either don't do it because it's wildly addictive and time consuming and not cost effective, or get lessons. So that's my advice to you, buddy. Get lessons. Don't let that don't let yourself build bad muscle memory. But I'm happy you found it. I'm happy. That's awesome. That's a great start. And I wanted to follow up with, what was your biggest fear about making that jump?
I guess I would have 3, and that would be enough money. 40 years of planning is a very long time to try to plan. And if you think back 40 years ago, it's a lot different than what it is today. So,
For sure.
And I've always, you can run analysis, get analysis paralysis there, just running numbers and tweak something, and you're now down to 40%. You tweak something else, you're now at 200%. So, I mean, I had that feeling, that gut feeling that I could do it, but I needed somebody else to validate that for me. A sense of purpose.
Yeah.
A lot of books, retirement stuff was saying, "Oh, you need a sense of purpose. You need a," and I was looking for a single sense of purpose,
Yeah.
something. I don't want to say different, and I couldn't. That was the hardest thing. I couldn't figure that out. But now that I retired, I think the sense of purpose is just me. I mentor, I play golf.
Nice.
So I do some things, I volunteer. So I already had a sense of purpose. So
Yeah.
I'm not looking for a larger sense of purpose. I wasn't looking in terms of a job. I wasn't looking for it. I wasn't looking for another job or another identity, if you will, in terms of I am now this. I realized I am what I am, and live it to the fullest. In mentoring, I was able to spend more time with the eighth graders that I mentor. So I enjoy that. So you have a lot more time, and you can, instead of spending one day a week, I spent 2 or 3 days a week. So
Yeah. Hey, Chelsea, would you agree? I talk to clients, and this idea, this concept of accumulating your whole life, going from this point of accumulating your whole life to jumping that threshold of, okay, now I'm not accumulating, and you want me to spend without accumulating. Isn't that would you agree that's kind of one of the hardest mental jumps to make for people?
Absolutely. I mean, it's a mindset. It's because you think about, you have that security of a paycheck every year for however many years. And then all you know is you're saving, you're doing everything you're supposed to be doing, and you're saving. And then that's what makes it work. And then all of a sudden, all of that stops. And then now you feel like everything is contingent on market performance. And if I go on this trip, is it just going to tank my plan? That's where having an advisor is invaluable. Like whether it's Root or whoever else, to kind of pulse check if it's possible. But yes, I would say that mental hurdle is really hard for people to just not worry, because you've had a job, like you said, whether you're problem solving or just something to fill your time, you have somewhere to be every day. And then now you have nothing to worry about except this one thing that you try not to worry about and that you have no control over. It's a lot.
And Chelsea, that kind of what happens too is I think a lot of people, if they don't kind of educate themselves, understand how portfolios grow, they go into the scarcity mindset, right? And these young years, your 50s, your 60s, even in your 70s, when you have good health and your energy, a lot of people don't take advantage, right? And don't get busy living. And it's this kind of sad thing where you could wake up in your late 80s and go, oh, shoot, now I'm going to die with millions of dollars or whatever in my account. And I don't have the energy to take that trip to Europe or to go to that concert or do those things I wanted to do, right? So that actually brings me into Amy's story. Amy, I really liked your comment, and I don't want to steal your thunder. I'd actually like you to kind of share your perspective on how you decided it was time to retire.
Sure. I was very, very much aligned with what Tommy was saying. I've been working with my company for 34 years, so a long time, and always been a remote worker. So I never was really tied to that being in an office with other coworkers and missing the coworkers and that kind of thing. I knew that wasn't going to be of importance. But there obviously was friendships over 30 years that you made. And so one of the ladies that I had worked very closely with, she retired, but she waited till she was 70 because she was afraid that she didn't know what she would do all day, because she was kind of a go-getter. And as soon as she retired, she's like, oh my gosh, why didn't I do this earlier? I should have done it so much earlier. I'm so busy now. And she was going to get a part-time job and all of that. And that kind of started the wheels. The other thing was just going to an advisor probably 8 years ago or more, who said, you're in a good spot, you could retire. And I just kept going, thinking more and more. And so once, I think like Tommy said, once it gets in your head, you start thinking about it. And so, you know, 2 things, testing it out, I think is really important. I'm the same way. I've got so much vacation time because I haven't used it, that I decided over Christmas to kind of use that and not I turn off the notifications on my phone, because I'm a kind of a sales account management role. Yeah. So if you're not taking care of your clients and your clients leave, you're losing business kind of thing. So you kind of always feel on every minute. In doing so, I was busier during that holiday time than ever before. In fact, my husband said, you know, when you retire, I'm going to come home, you're going to rewire the whole house. So, you know, like with Tommy, the same way, I love lists. I have lists on the phone, lists on paper, all these lists of things. And I'll just walk around the house. I'll be like, that's when I retire. I'll fix that. I'll do this. I'll do that. You know, or like the whole pickleball thing. I love pickleball, but I haven't really had time. You know, I kind of hesitate to get involved with friends or anything, because I'm afraid they're going to invite me to do something and I'm going to be like, I got to work. I got to save up my energy. So I haven't really done that. So just in my head, it worked. But then obviously the second piece was financially, can you do it? And, you know, the biggest difference with working with Root, you know, I had a financial advisor. She was wonderful at growing my portfolio. And then she unfortunately got a brain tumor and had to step away. She's fine. But so then I got what does Ari say? Who's Harold or who's Harry or something? You know, you get moved over to the next advisor. So that's when I kind of started looking. I went to one advisor and they're like, oh, this is great. Just buy an annuity and you're set, you know, annuity to cover your income. And being in the financial insurance space, I knew that was not a good choice. My advisor that they gave me to, you know, ran a big 20-page document and said, hey, you're in a good spot. And I said, well, what about Social Security? Well, I don't really know much about that. And then what about health insurance? Well, here's some guy everybody I've referred to has been really liked. And that didn't sit well with me, being a very analytical, detailed person. And so that's where I started looking on YouTube. And that's where I came to Root. And then it's just amazing. The message from Root was live your life, you know, because I was like, well, Chelsea, I think I can get away with what Ari says. What can I get away with? And they're like, no, dream bigger, go bigger. And it's not what the industry wants. And I thought about this. The industry wants you to save your money because they make their money off of your money. So if you spend down your money as an advisor, they're not making as much. And so I've never had an advisor that wants you to spend your money, wants you to live your life, and has such enthusiasm for it. I mean, even though I'm a Root client, I listen all the time to Ari and just the passion of living life, and going out and knowing I can do it. Like, you know, this last week, you know, the market's been a little choppy, you know, and normally I'd be like, well, but I know we're in a good spot because we've already set up that cushion for 3 to 5 years that let it ride from now on kind of thing. And so knowing that, you know, there's somebody of integrity, which I truly believe James, you know, drives that integrity through your company, watching for me, making sure the portfolio, and then kind of encouraging me to maximize the retirement. Plus the Social Security gave me access. You know, I've already talked with the health insurance and the options there, you know, that I think is a big hurdle too. People think, like Ari says, it's going to cost $1,500 a month. You can't go. And then realizing that, you know, there's options there, there's resources there. And so all the pieces together. Now, I do go into my Root account probably every 3 weeks, and I kind of just look at it to see comfort and knowing it's still there and stuff. But that comfort in knowing somebody is encouraging me and not moving the goalpost. I was good at moving the goalpost. Maybe just one more month, maybe just one more year. It's not that bad kind of thing. And then realizing, no, you just got to stop. And so was that comfort.
That's great. And if anybody's just joining us, the topic today we're talking about is, when do you know it's time to retire? We heard from Tommy, we heard from Amy, and if you didn't know, Amy and Chelsea is Amy is Chelsea's client. And so they have worked together in this process. And Amy now has a target date of retirement. And so I would love to hear from Chelsea's side, because this to me is like super important, because this impacted my parents as well, trying to figure out when to retire. My mom thought she was going to have to work as a nurse forever until she started working with Root. 73 years old, still working as a nurse until she started working with Root. And I want to hear from Chelsea. Like, I'd love to hear what the process is, Chelsea. Like, how do you walk hand in hand with a client and guide them through this process? Because so many clients are asking that for us, right? Like, please solve this problem for me. When can I retire? How can I do it confidently?
Yeah, I think, well, as far as starting the process, like, Amy, if you recall, that first meeting is really just like, what does life look like now? And what does it look like in retirement? And really just encouraging to visualize what that actually looks like, to how everyone else has said, how are you going to spend your time or everything else. And so I think even with Amy, like, I don't know if you recall, Amy, but even just like the Morgan Wallen concert, like that will stick with me probably forever. You like pulling the trigger on going on a trip to go spend a lot of money on a concert that some people would not feel comfortable with. And so I think, yeah, like pulling that trigger and feeling comfortable and having a professional there who's kind of walking alongside you to let you, so you can see that it's possible. And so I think for Root, like everyone, I'm sure you all have seen, we start with purpose. So what does life look like? And then at that point, we work to quantify, okay, if this is what we want to do, we kind of back into what we think it'll cost, and then we build the plan. And so I think versus most people get a number, they want the number first and they try and make life fit inside of there. And so I think we really start with purpose. And then at that point, we move into the actual plan. So we have a 4-step process we call the Sequoia system. After we have our kickoff meeting and really just get to know the client, what are their goals, financial goals and personal goals, and really build out what the plan looks like, we begin quantifying with income. What is income in retirement for them? So whether it's drawing from assets, Social Security, a pension, different annuities, whatever it is, we bring all of that in and get it working, get a plan in place for them based upon their spending goals and their retirement horizon. We then move into investments. And so given what income looks like, all of the investments that we have to save, how do we allocate that to support their goals? So when are we retiring? What are we planning on spending? How do we protect against market downside when it happens? Because we all know it's going to. And so those, and then at that point, every decision is a tax decision. So we go into tax planning. What does it look like now? What are things that we'll execute on in earlier years, and just things to be mindful of as tax rates change? And then kind of follow it up with what we call security. So it's kind of a catch-all: insurance or estate planning. Make sure everything is set in place for more to protect you and the plan and your family, however you wish to leave it. So we try and make it all encompassing and as personal as possible, because we all know finances are personal.
Yeah. And I even like to point out that, if you have the call with me, I start with, look, a lot of advisors out there, wealth managers, whatever you want to call it, are basing a lot of the planning off of assets, right? They'll run a Monte Carlo simulation for you. They'll give you some arbitrary number that you can live off for the rest of your life. But what the people that are talking to me are saying, like, look, that number felt shallow. It didn't feel like it had a lot of depth and breadth. So how we approach it is we really are talking about purpose. Like Chelsea and the other Rockstar advisors, in the first kickoff call, they are not planning. They're talking about, hey, let's get to know each other, make sure our personalities fit, but let's talk about purpose. Amy, what is your North Star? Because that's what we're going to solve for. Yes, we use your assets as part of it, but we want to know what does retirement look like? Because it's easy to say, yeah, I want to retire, but Amy, what do you want to do in retirement? Like, what does 5, 10, 15 years look like? What does 30 years look like? Is legacy important? Is that not? Do we want to die with zero? I had a great comment the other day by someone this couple, and they said, Jay, I want to bounce our last check, right? And that was right. So how we look at it is saying, okay, what's Amy's North Star? That's what we're going to solve for. And then the other thing, Chelsea, I like to talk about is in that income call, right? The education about just how portfolios grow over time. The rule of 72, how often it doubles. Because again, back to what Amy said about the ethos of what James and Ari are trying to, for lack of better terms, preach out there is like, hey, let's pull our heads out of the sand and let's get busy living in these young years and show you through the education process, like, look, your portfolio is going to grow. And if you don't get busy spending that money in these years, you're going to die with millions of dollars in the account, right? So I'm biased because I work here, but I believe in it. And I love that because it's purpose driven. And so it makes me so happy to hear stories like Tommy, to hear Amy, like feeling comfortable and confident in the game plan, right?
There's one other thing that I kind of realized, people always say, well, why should I work with an advisor? One of the things I realized is one small mistake can be tens of thousands of dollars. And I mean, you always say, well, why would I pay an advisor to manage but it's, when you start to dig into it, and Tommy was saying he, is on YouTube watching it, if you take Social Security too late or too early, you don't do tax planning, correctly, then I'm like, I don't want to make that mistake. I want somebody else who's the expert looking at that. So I'm not making a silly mistake, whether it's whatever it is, and I know, just it's the portfolio. It's like, okay, do we change, our, the portfolio, where we are mostly invested, and somebody at the roots looking at that, not me, because, it's more volatile in Venezuela or wherever it is. But if people are like, why should I work with an advisor? That to me is a really big deal, is that just that little mistake can cost you a lot that you don't know. So
great call. Call. Okay. So on that note, the flip side, Chelsea, what would you say out there to people who are listening, who are thinking this exact question, when can I retire? But for whatever reason, they're not working with an advisor. Maybe managed services is not for them. Maybe they don't, qualify under a minimum, whatever it is, right? They can handle it themselves. Give them a nugget, Chelsea. How can you guide them a little bit?
I mean, like Jay said, whether it's you don't want to pay an advisor ongoing, or you don't meet the minimum of the firm you'd like to work with, or whatever it be, at least get a one-time plan. Like I said, just pulse check, just see, because everyone talks about 4% rule, but that's dependent on so many things. Like there's you get those little one-liners that people just hold on to. And so I think, like I said, just pulse check, am I in the ballpark? And I think even just starting with, what does life look like? Like actually try and visualize, what does life look like? Talk to your spouse about it. You'd be surprised how many people don't talk to their spouses, and you get to retirement and you want to do vastly different things. Like they never talked about what life looks like outside of just going to date night every once in a while. Like just,
great call.
Thinking about that. And then I think if you are thinking about whether you want to work with an advisor or if it's worth it or whatever, just kind of like you were saying, Amy, I think the idea of success just means a lot of money, the most money. That's what success means. I just have the most money. But is that really a successful life if you're worried about it all the time? Yeah, you have more money because you didn't pay someone to pay an expert to really watch it for you, guide you where you wanted to go. So I think it's more of, what does even success look like for you? If it's just the most money as possible, sure, do it yourself, do your best, educate yourself, keep up with tax laws, keep up with all these things that are ever changing. But really, if it's trying to figure out how to maximize life and not just maximize the plan, and you can afford the advisor, why would you not just enjoy life and just not worry about it at all? And so I think a lot of people who have enjoyed doing it, they're just, oh, I like to. It's like, do you like to, or you've done it for so long now it's just your job, And so I think really digging deep for what retirement looks like, and if trading and researching and doing that's how you envision, if that's how you're stimulated, then more power to you. But if it's more getting out there and enjoying it, I would say a one-time plan for sure.
Okay, I like that.
Have conversations with your spouse. And there are some advisors who don't charge a ton, have very reasonable fees. You may not meet with them as often as you'd meet with advisors at Root, but if you don't need that, then that's something. But I think even just that one-time pulse check will make you feel a ton better. Just shooting
and I agree. I love those comments. And also, you guys, we also have our academies. James has his academy. Ari's got his early retirement academy. They're $299. They come with the Right Capital software. Sorry, this is not supposed to be a sales pitch, but it's an awesome option. If you're more of a do-it-yourselfer and you don't really want the ongoing services, you can plug everything into the Right Capital software and get some ideas, right? And like Chelsea said, I think it's so valuable to have that pulse check, even if you get a one-time, check, because so many people are concerned about this. And I hate to feel that people are just working to this specific age because they think that's what it's supposed to be, right? Because they're trying to hit this marker versus, I love Ari's podcast called Early Retirement Podcast, right? He's trying to encourage that. Amy, so like in summation is we'll bring Tommy back in too, because I wanted to just ask you advice. What's your one tip of advice? I know you're getting there. You're almost retired, but you got your target date. What do you have for the listeners out there?
One of the things that's been weighing on me lately, and I think about this is, financial advisors, they always project out to like 95,
Yes.
And I started thinking about this. I think as you think about that, you just assume then you're going to live to 95, when you think about it. And so I thought, as getting older, I think it's starting to impact me, the go-go years, how they talk about that. And I think that's one of the things, I like to exercise and I do a lot of activity, but as you get older, you realize you can't continue to do as much as you used to do. And there's no getting around that. There's nothing you can do. You can do as many cold plunges and as many massages and whatever you want, but it doesn't work. And so time always catches up with you. And so I kind of started to feel that. And I thought, like I shared in my comment, my mother passed away in her early 70s. My father's still 92 and going strong. Which side of the coin am I on? And so am I 10 years? That's it. That's all I have. And my mother was healthy until she wasn't. So, I think always expecting you're going to be healthy. You're going to be able to take that trip. You're going to be able to do things, and you're going to live to 95 because that's what my financial plan says. That's not the case.
Of course.
And start really thinking. And it's funny how even Tommy said, I've always been into health and all of that, but a lot of people aren't while they're working. It's difficult. And like Tommy said, as soon as he stopped, that's what he got into, because that's where your longevity is going to come in. And that's, people can focus on that and live a better quality of life, as you move into that retirement.
Yeah, that's great. And so I brought Tommy's back in. I wanted to ask you the same question, Tommy, because you are retired. You did I love the detail you went into and the thoughtfulness of it. And, you did have some reservations, but it all worked out and you're loving retirement, which is success, right? So any tidbits of advice, before we wrap this up?
Yeah, if for getting an advisor, I would first say, you don't know what you don't know, and all the nuances of tax laws and the ACA and things and what counts for what. And I thought I was knowledgeable. There is so much more out there, and I just can't keep up with everything. So, and that's why I work with an advisor. I will say that I am in the best health. I am the most healthy I've ever been in my life.
Nice.
In the last 3 years, yeah, I probably lost 25 pounds. And
man.
I didn't think I was very stressed at work. And I thought my job was, I did it, it was stressful, but it wasn't, I thought I handled it and I didn't think I had a lot of stress. But after 26 years, you kind of learn to, just suck it up and deal with it.
Yep.
But it's unbelievable. You have the time to do the things. Somebody says, "Hey, let's go get coffee." Go do it. I live life. One of the things I did with my advisor was I said, I don't know what I want to do yet, but what if I wanted to buy a retirement house for $500,000? Could I do it?
Yep.
And they're like, I don't know, let's play with it. And they're like, yeah, you can do it. I'm like, do I have to sell my house, my current house? And they're like, nope. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't have those it's really hard since you've been under somebody else's control, unless you own your own company, to really dream. And we're just starting, my wife and I are just starting to try to plan bigger trips, things that we didn't, take the first class or go for something that is, if there's two options and one's, $100 more, I go for the one that's $100 more, the better experience or something, a closer seat at a concert or something.
That's right.
That's part of the, as Chelsea said, to live your life. And I think those experiences, and we've been looking for experiences that are unique, not just, I want to go to Paris and see the Eiffel Tower. Everybody does that. But I want something to say, I did this, and most people never even thought of or dreamt of doing these things. So that's where we are. It's well difficult. Said. It's very difficult to find these opportunities that we're not jettisoning on a private jet somewheres, but there's still a whole lot of stuff that we can do that is, buy the dessert at dinner, things that we never really did when, we were in the accumulation phase. So great comments. Seriously. Yeah. It's like, spend the money on the first class ticket, right? Little things like that. Buy the good tickets to the show. I love that. Lucas, what about you, man? Anything you want to share?
Yeah, you asked Chelsea for a couple golden nuggets. I think she gave you quite a few, and a lot from Amy and Tommy as well. The main point that I want everyone to take away is that doing good financial planning, likely with an advisor of some sort, there is a big difference between an advisor and a good advisor, right? So that's just the caveat I want to make. There's a bunch of different, the full span of advisors out there. And just because you have a advisor doesn't mean that they might be the right advisor for you or a good advisor. Is that you're making a financial plan to give yourself a better, a more optimal outcome in the future. But if you don't take that better outcome and then apply it to your life today and actually utilize it, it really was for nothing, right? If your kids inherit $1 million traditional IRA or they inherit a $1.3 million traditional IRA, did you do much? Is that better, or would they have rather gone on an extra trip with you every single year the last 15 years you were alive and inherited $300,000 less, right? So if you don't apply call it the advisor alpha is what it's kind of called in the industry, to your life and make your life better because of it, nothing was really gained in the grand scheme of things. And so that's where Root, even in the good advisor space, like I like to think that we are the top tier of advisors as well. But the biggest differentiator is that not only are we looking to give you a more optimal outcome through a good plan, but we're also looking to apply that to your life today and over the next 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 years and walk with you along the way. It's a bold assumption to say that someone who's disciplined and in the academy and watches James's videos is not going to mess up their retirement by the head trash, right, that Ari talks about. We did a live stream last Wednesday talking about the market's down a little bit, right? Where you guys heads at. And a lot of people that I think that they don't have head trash have a lot more than they realize. They're already shifting allocations, right? The market's down almost 10%, which on average does every single year, and people are already changing things. And so that's where I'd say it's a huge assumption to assume that you're not going to mess something up along the way, even without factoring in having an advisor. So to check all the boxes and do all of it right is a tall task, and there's no shame in needing help with that and having someone walk with you, like Amy and Tommy's point.
Yeah, well said, Luke Dog. I love that. Amy, Tommy, I applaud your bravery for coming on, sharing that story. It's inspirational. It helps people. People are curious about this. I talk to people. I take 4 to 5 calls a day, and this is like the number one question, right? So I really mean it. Thank you guys for coming on, sharing that. Chelsea, you are the GOAT. The wisdom, Chelsea's literally one of our most requested advisors. She's got more designations you know what to do with. She's got talent, personality out the wazoo. She's an incredible human being. Thank you, Chelsea. I really appreciate that. This is really helpful. Lucas, I appreciate you. And you guys, drop in the comments what you guys want to hear about. Share your stories. Maybe Amy and Tommy can help you guys guide through. Join us on the collective. Come in there. It's a free community. There's great conversations happening in there. Yeah, and until the next show, we'll see you guys later. Appreciate it, everybody. Have a great rest of the evening.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.